Harry. It's our big chance.
Dear Lord, we thank you for the gift of life today. You allow us to have another day to praise you and see your glory. Thank you for the love and protection, especially this time of pandemic. Bless us, Father, with your wisdom as we begin our class. Help us to focus our hearts and minds on what we are about to learn. Inspire us by your Holy Spirit as we think and listen. Guide us by your eternal light as we discover more about the world around us. Lord, we thank you and let your will be done in our lives. We ask all this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we will be discussing about evaluation, how to plan homework, and how to write lesson plan. Learning objectives. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to assess student learning and behavior. You can discuss the benefits of homework, and you can able to write lesson plan. Another element of lesson plan is evaluation. So first, let us know what is evaluation. Evaluation, it is derived from the word value, and in education, it is the process of using the measurement gathered in assessment, and this measurement is used to judge the student if the learning is taking place or how well the student have attained our learning objectives. So why we evaluate? We evaluate the students so that we can determine what the student know and understand and how far they have progressed. So what are the importance of evaluation? Number one, to assess the abilities and capabilities of our students. So if we know our students' abilities, so we will know the appropriate teaching method to apply. Number two, it helps to determine the effectiveness of the learning experience. So for the side of the teacher, we will know if our teaching method is effective. Number three, it helps in the development of study habit and motivation for better performance. So for the students, if they are not satisfied enough for they've got in their exam, they will aim more. They are motivated to get high grades. Number four, it helps to provide feedback. And last, five, it helps the teacher to discover the needs of the students. So it will help the teacher to find the lacking areas of the students and the areas we need to focus to help the student improve their performance. Effective evaluation techniques. Comprehensive evaluation programs seeks all available information in order to be able to make a clear and accurate judgment on amount and quality of learning. So we have 10 effective evaluation techniques. Number one is the administration of paper and pencil test. So it refers to as an assessment tool which candidates read questions and response in writing. These include tests such as knowledge and ability test. And paper and pencil can also be used to assess job-related knowledge and ability or skill qualification. Examples are objective tests. So first, let us know what is objective test. Objective test, this is a test which has a right or wrong answers. Examples of objective tests are true or false, multiple choice, matching types, and short answers. Short answers are examples are these are the fill in the blanks. Number 2 techniques, undertaking individual or group investigation. It is a cooperative learning method which integrate interaction and communication in the classroom with the process of academic inquiry. So the students are asked to group themselves together to achieve the goal. To evaluate their work, there are factors that need to consider in evaluating their investigation. So 1, how they conduct the investigation, what are the process, what are the things they follow. Number 2, the procedure they follow, analysis of data, and how I arrive in such conclusions. Number 3, oral participation, the active participation in class recitation, panel discussion, debates, as well as special reports. It is easy to evaluate students who are actively participating in class recitation, meaning they have read the material, they are engaged in the discussions. With that, they are able to share ideas. There are also reasons why students are not participating in class recitation. One of them is they are shy, they have low self-esteem. So as future educator, we have to create atmosphere that will encourage our students to participate, like be respectful on their perspective. Number 4, assessing quality of work product. These are the assignment notebooks, compilation of researches, or the projects. There are factors that we need to consider in evaluating the work of the students. So number 1, the steps and the strategy they use as they work, their creativity. Number 2, how much planning the student did. And number 3, what are the obstacles they got through to get the things done. So these are the factors we need to check when evaluating the students' work. Number 5, presenting project. A simple project constructed to illustrate a law or principle that was discussed, a culminating activity like a drama or a community activity undertaken. So criteria for presenting drama play, we have to, number 1, we have to observe the physical performance, which includes the physical movement, the voice, the gestures. Also, we have to check the characterization, if the characterization is clear and believable. And also, we have to check the knowledge, how they present the plot and knowledge of the play. So these are the things also that we need to consider. Number 6, evaluation techniques is preparing collections. This ability to prepare collections of rare specimens, interesting forms of plants and animals, and historic artifacts could be rated. Example of these are the ancient tools, metal objects, and weapons. Rare historical specimens collections serve as important sources of data for the scientists and educators. And these collections help to the contribution in advancements in science and education. Number 7, actual observation. Classroom observation typically conducted by the teachers and administrators to provide them feedback and to improve their classroom management. And it can be done in 2 forms. We have the informal observation and we have the formal observation. In informal observation, teachers collect data about the student progress and development without relying on scores and academic works. Example of informal observations are the peer relationship, the behavior, the well-being, and the development. On the other hand, formal observation is assessment is database. Examples are the graded exam, records, and portfolio. Number 8 is a personal file. These are the information gathered when you entered school. Examples are the entrance exam, the aptitude test, the IQ test, the records and performance, and other personal details. Number 9, performance test. Performance test assesses psychomotor learning. The teacher grade the activity without the use of paper and pencil test. Instead, psychomotor learning need to be performed and observe the mastery of the skills. Performance tests can also be measured by accuracy and speed. Example of these are the operating of the machine, playing of the instrument, and other physical activities. Number 10, portfolio. The function of evaluation portfolio is to document what the student has learned and what has been taught. So it may include the teacher observation in the form of record and checklist, sample of student work. These are the reports, the projects, the essays, the poems, student activities, test results, and parents' comments and letters. So that's the end of my discussion. The next reporter is Ma'am Mary Catherine Factor.
Baby shark do baby shark do baby shark do baby shark.
Good day, everyone. The next topic that we're going to talk about is the types of evaluation, which are formative and summative evaluation. But before we proceed, there are some questions in our mind that's seeking for an answer, like how learning can be assessed, or what are the ways to assess learning, and how and when we can find out if our students learn something in our lesson discussion. So let's continue our discussion. Formative and summative evaluation are two overlapping complementary ways of evaluating pupils' progress in school, while the common goal is to establish the development and strengths and weaknesses of each student. Each evaluation type provides different insights and actions for educators. Evaluation allows both instructor and students to monitor progress towards achieving learning objectives and can be approached in a variety of ways. So teachers use evaluation to determine whether students have met their learning objectives. There are two types of evaluation that I'm going to discuss. The first one is formative evaluation and the second one is summative evaluation. So let's talk about the first one, which is formative evaluation. It is when we are engaging ourselves in this program and activities in the process of our teaching. So it focuses on the process. In the process of teaching, we can immediately find out if our pupils or students can follow the lessons or not. How we could know if they learned something in our lesson. We could know it by knowing their answers on some questions and the way they conduct themselves in some activities. Right there and then, we will know if we already near or far from the attainment of our objectives. The result of formative evaluation gives opportunities to the proponents, learners, and teachers how well the objectives of the program are being attained. Formative evaluation is beneficial to learning. It helps faculty to recognize where students are struggling in our class discussion so that they could address problems immediately. Main objectives of evaluation is to determine the deficiencies so that the appropriate interventions can be done. It's better to check the learning status of the students while our teaching is on process than being so late that we can able to do the remedial teaching for them. While teaching is on process, we already get to know that remedial teaching in sub-skills is necessary. Once we identify the students are struggling in our class discussion and hard to participate into class participation. So by that time, we can do remedial teaching for them at once without having to wait for the result of the summative evaluation. It is important that we do immediate actions to help the students to cope up and understand more their lessons. Let's go back to the remedial teaching. What is the meaning of it? It is also known as compensatory or corrective teaching. The teacher teaches the lesson in order to help slow learners to make up for what they lost in the course or learning. So there are some examples of formative evaluation that most of our teachers use to evaluate the learning of our students. Some examples includes pop quizzes, 1-minute papers or on a specific subject matter, reading checks, learning games, homework, short comparative assessments or to see the pupils are performing against their peers, music rehearsals, reflection paragraphs, exit tickets or to summarize what pupils have learned, hands-on activities and silent classroom polls. A teacher can learn whether their class understands a concept with a simple hand raise or class discussion. These types of assessment measure progress towards proficiency, not content knowledge or skill acquisition. It tells teachers whether they need to reteach a concept or they can move on to their next topic. So now let's proceed to summative evaluation. So what is summative evaluation? When we at the end of a unit or at the end of a semester, we check how much learning took place. It aims to evaluate students' learning and academic achievement at the end of the term, year, or semester by comparing it against a universally standard or school benchmark. It focuses on the result. It is designed to determine the effectiveness of a program or activity based on its purposes. Summative evaluation often have a high point value, take place under controlled conditions, and therefore have more visibility. They sum up what the class can now do or now knows as a result of a teacher's instruction. Why summative evaluation is important? In the current education system, standard-driven instruction plays a significant role. Summative evaluation therefore provides an essential benchmark to check the progress of students, institutions, and the educational program of the country as a whole. So there are some examples of summative evaluation. Some examples includes graded tests, research reports, structured essays, portfolio projects, book reports, final exams or midterm exams, recitals, standardized tests that demonstrates school accountability are used for pupil submission, final projects, and creative portfolios. Unlike formative evaluation, the main purpose of a summative is for teachers to measure skill acquisition. However, a teacher may modify their teaching methods in future lessons based on assessment results. Here are some information about formative and summative evaluation. How these two evaluations fit together. The distinction between some types of summative evaluation and formative evaluation can be hard to identify. For examples, schools may use benchmark testing to monitor the academic progress of pupils and determine whether they are on track to mastering the material that will be evaluated on the end of course test. Some educators consider this interim test to be formative. They are diagnostic and help modify learning techniques, but others may consider them to be summative. In our current education system, the purpose of both formative and summative evaluation are not always mutually supportive. Traditional evaluation used to summative purposes contains key diagnostic data for teachers, but this information is perhaps too infrequent or comes too late for appropriate actions. Selected response and formative written assessments, homework, meanwhile, and ongoing class feedback all serve as valuable activities as part of teachers' evaluation toolkit if it's used appropriately. I have here a tables showing some basic differences between formative and summative evaluation. As you can see, there's a two-section for formative and summative evaluation, along with the same questions occurs into both of them. The first question is frequency of use. In formative, every lesson, and in summative, end of unit or course. The next one is assessment occurs. In formative, during learning, and in summative, after learning. Next one is purpose for assessment. In formative, quick check for understanding, and in summative, fully assess knowledge or skills. Under formality, in formative, informal, and in summative, formal. Next is skilled assessed. In formative, specific skills or knowledge, and in summative, a range of skills or knowledge. Next is part of final grade. In formative, minor, and in summative, significant. Next is focused on. In formative, process, and in summative, product. Next is allow teachers to. In formative, teach responsively, and in summative, reflect on entire unit or course. Next, allow students to. In formative, evaluate their own learning, and in summative, understands overall performance. Next, allows creative options. In formative, yes, and in summative, yes. And the last one is main difference. In formative, assessment for learning, and in summative, assessment of learning. Let's proceed to the next topic. The written quiz or test as the most common evaluation tools. What is written quiz or test? It is a test of knowledge, especially a brief informational test given to students. It's a traditional test which refers to a usual written test or a paper-pencil type of test. There are two types of written tests which are carried out to determine the performance of students. Two types of written tests are objective test and essay type of test. So what is objective type of test? It is a highly structured test items. It requires the pupils to supply a word or two or to select the correct answer from a number of alternatives. The answer of the item is fixed one. Objective type items are most efficient to measure different instructional objectives. Objective type tests are also called as new type tests. These are designed to overcome some of the great limitations of traditional essay type test. Objective test divided into two, which is selected response and constructed response. Under selected response types includes alternate response or true-false test, matching type test, and multiple choice test. And under constructed response, types includes a completion test, supply test, enumeration test, and the other types of written test is essay type of test. What are the definition of each type of test? Alternate response tests are the tests that have only two options such as true, false, right or wrong, yes or no, good or better, and so on. The next one is matching type test. It may be considered modified multiple choice type of test where the choices progressively reduce as one successfully matches the item on the left within the items on the right. The next one is multiple choice test. It's a type of test offers the students with more than two options per item to choose from. It consists two parts which are STEM and options. Next one under constructed response are completion test. Completion test, it is however possible to construct supply types of tests that will test the higher order thinking skills. Next one is supply type of test, which depends heavily on the way the stems are constructed. This test allows for one and only one answer and hence often test only to test the student's knowledge. Enumeration type, it is also a test more in memory recall, which is done by enumerating particular answers into particular questions. The second type of written test is essay. What is essay? It is classified as non-objective tests allow for the assessment of higher order thinking skills. Such tests require the students to organize their thoughts on a subject matter in coherent sentence in order to inform an audience. In essay tests, students are required to write one or more paragraphs on a specific topic. Aside from a paper-pencil test, most of the teachers are also using authentic evaluation tools like performance tests. The so-called practical tests and skill subjects like physical education, laboratory subjects, and computer subjects. The most reliable way to test our students learn the skills we intended to teach is by the way of hands-on exercises, by the way of actual performances like dancing, playing, and using computer programs. Aside from the performance tests, we can also assess our students by making and submitting portfolios. The next topic is assessing students' behaviors. During class hours, we as teachers must be a keen observer and skilled listener to our students all throughout the class. There are a number of pertinent questions such as the following may indicate progress or changes in behavior patterns. In here, we can able to see if our students' behaviors are having any progress or changes throughout our discussions. The first question is nature of a student's participation. So in here, we are able to know if our students is participating in our class discussions. Does he take any active part in discussions? Or does he ask thought-provoking questions? The second one is curiosity. Is he curious about things in the environment? Or does he love nature? And the third one is he a keen observer? Does he observe by using all senses? Or does he record observations accurately? The fourth one is weighing evidences. Does he continue collecting more and more evidences? Does he differentiate relevant from irrelevant ones? Does he analyze observations before formulating conclusions? The fifth one is cooperation. Does he work cooperatively with his classmates? Does he prefer to work alone or with groups? The sixth one is interest. What are his specific areas of interest? Does he engage in any hobby? What are his recreations? The seventh one is beliefs. Does he entertain false beliefs and superstitions? Does he listen to hearsays? The eighth one is creativity. Does he generate new ideas and try new procedures? Does he possess originality? In here, if they create their own ideas or try to make a creative works. The ninth one is critical mindedness. How does he analyze and interpret data? Does he employ investigative process in finding solutions to daily problems? Does he scout all possible explanations before making own judgments? The 10th one is persistence. Does he pursue a task to completion? Is he willing to spend extra time and effort in continuing difficult tasks? Does he give up easily when problem occurs? As a teacher, we should be able to consider the different behaviors of our students so we can be able to understand them, most especially during our class discussions. That's the end of my discussion. Next reporter would be Ma'am Joanne Rodriguez.
Hello everyone! Today, I am going to discuss about the criterion reference evaluation versus norm reference evaluation. But before that, let us first know what is criterion reference evaluation and norm reference evaluation. Criterion reference test compare a person's knowledge or skills against a predetermined standard, learning goal, performance level, or other criterion. With criterion reference test, each person's performance is compared directly to the standard without considering how other students perform on the test. Criterion reference tests often use CAT scores to place students into categories such as basic, proficient, and advanced. In this picture, as we have seen on criterion reference test, an individual student's score is not affected by the performance of their peers. This means knowing the student's score for a criterion reference will only tell you how that specific students compared related to the criteria, but not whether they perform below average, above average, or average when compared to their peers. Now, let's proceed to the norm reference evaluation. Norm reference refers to the standardized tests that are designed to compare and rank test takers in relation to one another. Norm reference tests report whether test takers perform better or worse than a hypothetical average students, which is determined by comparing scores against the performance results of the statistically selected group of test takers, typically of the same age or grade level, who have already taken the exam. Norm reference assessment works similarly. An individual student percentile rank describes their performance in comparison to the performance of student in the norm group, but does not indicate whether or they met or exceed a specific standard or criterion. In the charts below, you can see that while the student's score doesn't change, their percentile rank does change depending on how well the student in the norm group performed. When the individual is a top performing student, they have a high percentile rank. When they are a low performing student, they have a low percentile rank. What we can tell from this chart is whether or not the student should be categorized as proficient or below proficient. Now, let's proceed to the criterion reference evaluation versus norm reference evaluation, how they similar and how they different. For criterion reference evaluation, first, to measure the skills and knowledge a statement has mastered. Second, student scores are given a percent. Third, assesses a small number of students. Fourth, tests usually last a class period. And the last, develop individually and classroom, they are the most creative in classroom. For norm reference evaluation, first, to rank students based contest achievement. Second, scores are given as a rank based on other students' scores. Third, assesses very large of students. Fourth, tests usually take a long period. And last, develop on a state or rational level. That's all about my report. Next reporter will be Miss Margaret Gabayan. Miss Gabayan.
Hi everyone, I am Margaret Gabayan and I will report planning homework. So what is planning homework? This is the last but not the least part of lesson plan. It is our way of extending the school day by providing pupils or students the opportunity to refine and extend their knowledge. In homework, it feels like homework never stops getting piled on and getting track on it, and it can feel a little chaotic. That's where a homework schedule comes in. With a good schedule, you won't have to worry about missing homework, assignments, or not having enough time to finish them. And it's surprisingly easy to put one together. Not sure where to start? Don't worry, we walk you through what to do step by step here in the board. Setting up homework schedule. First, you need to set a time frame for doing homework. You need to decide how much time you have available for homework. After school for each day of the week, for example, Monday, you need 1 hour. Then Tuesday, you need 1.5 hour. Then Wednesday, you need 1.5 hour. On the days where you have other planned activities, whether it's an extracurricular activity or chores or quality time with your family, you will have less time for homework. And for setting up homework, you need to consider your mornings. At the end of the day, if you're really tired and still have homework, you go to bed, set your alarm perhaps an hour or 2 hours earlier what you usually do. This way, when you do homework, you will have more energy and be able to complete it faster. You also won't have to worry about it after school when you are tired. Third, in setting up homework, use your study halls or homework times well. Don't be fooling around with your friends and then come home annoyed that you have a lot of homework. This will make you more grumpy and you will probably told off by your teacher as well. Don't let your friends distract you. Also, use your free period if you have a free period. Don't use it to hang out with your friends. Use it to catch up your homework. You will have time to hang out with your friends. After school, make your homework first priority. How getting all your homework done. Estimate how much time you will be needed to complete each assignment. Be realistic. It is better to block out more time than less. If you finish early, you can use your bonus time for another subject. Remember, if you have time left over, you can reward yourself by doing other than homework. And then second, in getting all your homework done, prioritize your earliest deadline policy. This is an optimal dynamic scheduling policy. If it's humanly possible to meet all the deadlines, earliest deadline first policy will work. That means if you get a new assignment due the next day, you need to suspend all work due in 2 days and work on the next day's assignment. However, if you cannot meet any deadlines, you will miss them randomly with earliest deadline. Then third, in getting all your homework done, break down your homework time. Look at your assignments and consider how much time you need to devote to each. Find time in your homework schedule to get it done, preferably a day early. If you have 5 pages paper due on Friday, evenly spread the total amount of hours you believe it is going to take a complete the paper between each day. In setting up homework, you need to write it break times. This will stop you from getting too overwhelmed and frustrated during long stretches of homework time, and it will help you to keep your mind focused. 10 minutes break for each an hour of homework done is a good guideline. So use this time to stretch, wash your face, walk around the block, and unload the dishwasher for your parents, get something to drink, or do anything that won't tempt you to delay your return to homework. Do not extend the time you take to refuel, such as getting your juice. Then you spend a lot of time getting juice, and do not start with activities that relate to it, or else all the planning in the world is useless. Your plans won't work if you won't work in getting all your homework done. Avoid procrastination. Don't spend the first 20 minutes at home complaining about your work, because in that amount of time you could have done some homework. It's really pointless complaining because you are going to have to do it anyway. Understanding what needs to get done. First, you need to list all the homework and activities that you have for that day or week. Includes games, projects, essay, and more. It will be easier to know what homework you have and the details. Then sort out the times and what days you have your out of school activities. Write down the time periods of when you don't have something planned. Assign a subject of homework to that time period. This leads using the spare time. If you don't have an activity one day, try to do homework for other days also to get it out of the way. And second, in understanding what needs to get done by your homework, write your assignments done accurately and promptly. You cannot plan your homework time effectively if you do not know exactly what to do. Record the following information. Example, the subject or course in which the work is assigned, English, algebra, educational technology, etc. Then know what you're expected to hand in or do, and ask if you do not understand. Example, turn in an essay, develop PowerPoint presentation, or take a test. Example of your assignments: spacing, the font, and the ink type you need to use. Then the page number, which pages you need to read, study, or refer to complete your assignments. Due date and the due date of the assignment also. What are the 3 main functions of homework? The 3 main functions of homework are practice, preparation, and lastly, the elaboration. What is practice? Practice in homework helps to revise daily, practice topic taught, or recap the topic taught. And preparation is where the student gain background information on a unit of study to better prepare them for future lessons. Elaboration. It encourages students to pursue knowledge individually and imaginatively. And the other function of homework is creative. Creative helps students integrate multiple concepts and promotes the development of critical thinking and problem-solving skills. And that's all about my report, planning homework. And the next reporter would be Ma'am Nika Sayang. Thank you very much.
You are so cool. Shh. What did I do to you?
Are you serious?
Hello everyone! My topic is all about writing a lesson plan. So we are going to discuss what is lesson plan, the requirements needed, and the guide questions to be considered in writing an effective lesson plan. But first, let us know what is lesson plan. So lesson plan is the teacher's detailed description of the course of instruction or learning trajectory. So lesson plan is very important. Why? Because it helps teachers to become more effective in the classroom by providing a detailed outline to follow each class period. So, we have three integral stages of lesson planning. Pre-planning, what will I teach? Planning, how will I teach it? And post-planning, well, where will I go next? First, let us know what is pre-planning. So, pre-planning can be a great time to make decisions about the direction of your lessons and help you to use your actual planning time more efficiently. Second is the planning. So what is it? Planning is when you answer how you will accomplish your learning objectives. This includes deciding on and planning out your activities, lectures, group projects, homework, etc. It may result in a formal lesson plan or simply a to-do list or course of action. How you decide to record your lesson plan is up to you and the expectations you have to meet. And last, we have post-planning. So what is post-planning? It refers to the time you commit to reflecting on the lesson you taught, strategizing based on that lesson, and thinking about the upcoming lesson or class. Lesson planning should never end. With a piece of paper, not only are there things that you have to prepare for your lesson plan, but there is a lot of planning that should take place after you teach the lesson. So we have 6 components to be considered in writing lesson plan. First, we have lesson objectives. So what is lesson objectives? Lesson objectives, it is a setting of goals for your class and students. One of the most popular setting goal strategies is the SMART criteria. In writing lesson objectives, we can use the most common strategy, and that is the SMART criteria. I know you are familiar with the word SMART and the meaning of each letter. We should consider the following guide questions in making our objectives. First, we have, is the objective specific? Second, is the objective measurable? Third, is the objective attainable by all students? Is the objective relevant to your class and students? And last, is objective time-based to align with your syllabus? If your lesson plan have answers to these questions, you have a great objective. Let us tackle the second components, and that is related requirements. Those are topics that are related or have connection to your topic that may help your lesson plan become successful. Related requirements are national, state, or school standards that dictate what you need to teach in a class. Third component is the lesson materials. The third section on your lesson plan is the list of materials that you need to teach the lesson and measure student outcomes. So we have common types of lesson materials include students' handouts, textbook, visual aids, grading rubrics, activity packets, and computers or tablets. The list of materials for each lesson depends on what you plan to teach, how you'll teach it, and how you will measure lesson objectives. Because of this, many teachers compile their list of lesson materials in tandem with their lesson procedure. Let's proceed to next components, the lesson procedure. So what is lesson procedure? Let us know it. Lesson procedure, it is a depth explanation of how the lesson will progress in the classroom. The lesson procedure is essentially step-by-step instructions that walk you through everything from the time students enter the classroom until the bell rings at the end of the period. To do that, you can answer a list of questions to be considered on making lesson procedure, such as how will you introduce the topic? Second, what is the best way to teach this information to your students? Third, how can you incorporate problem solving and critical thinking? What real-life scenarios relate to this topic? And last, does the topic lend itself to group work? For you to have a best procedure, consider these given questions in your lesson plan. Next is the assessment method. It measures whether your students learn a lessons, information, and meet your lesson objectives. The methods listed on your lesson plan will most often be formative assessments and vary from lesson to lesson. So, how do you make assessment? How? There are common types assessment options, include quizzes. Second, hands-on activities. Third, writing activities. Fourth, group presentations. Fifth, executive slips. And last, we have class journal entries. This assessment is very common in the classroom and one way of teachers to assess its students. Let's proceed to the last components, and that is lesson reflection. So what is this? A portion of a lesson plan encourages teachers to take notes how to improve a lesson after it has been completed. When completing of the lesson, take longer questions like, first we have the question, did a part of the lesson take longer than expected? Second, we have the question, was there a portion that students asked for a lot of help with? Third, did the students breeze through the information with no problem? Next, were students engaged and interested in the topic? And last, were the objectives met by most or all of the students? As a teacher, we should consider the capacity to learn of our students. Because if students did not understand the lesson or topic we discuss, it is not only reflect on them but also has a great impact on us as a teacher. It means that we have to improve our lesson planning and our strategies in teaching to be an effective teacher and to have a better class discussion. So, That's the end of my topic. Thank you for listening. Next reporter will be Miss Chimin Badilla. Chimin, it's your turn.
Baby shark do 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 do, baby shark do 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 do, baby shark do 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 do, baby shark.
To summarize Chapter 4, the topic is Evaluating of Learning. We evaluate teaching and learning for an overall purpose of improving instruction, to be able to make a clear and accurate judgment on amount and quality of learning. So we have the 10 evaluation techniques. Number 1, administration of paper and pencil tests. Examples are objective tests such as multiple choice items, true or false, and matching types. Number 2, undertaking individual or group investigation. To evaluate the work, there are factors we need to consider: how they conduct the investigation, the procedure they follow, analysis of data. Number 3, oral participation. As a future educator, we have to create atmosphere that will encourage them to participate and be engaged in the discussion. Number 4, assessing quality work. These are the assignment, notebook, factor in evaluating. The strategy they use is creativity, the planning, and the obstacle they encounter. Number 5, presenting project. Example is drama play. We need to observe physical performance or physical movements, the voice, gesture, characterization, and how they present the plot. Number 6, preparing collection. Their ability to prepare collection, rare specimen. Number 7, actual observation. We have two types, the informal and formal observation. Informal observation, which is collecting data about student progress without relying on academic work. And on the other hand, is formal observation, which is assessment is a database. Number 8, personal life. These are the information gathered when you intern in school. Number 9, performance test. This is assessing psychomotor learning without the use of paper and pencil. Example is playing instrument. And the last, number 10, portfolio. It's a document where the student work like project activities and test results were documented. Next, the formative and summative evaluation. So, there are the two ways on which learning can be assessed. It is typically conducted during the development or improvement of program. In this assessment, we already know if we are near or far from attainment of objectives. So, it is called formative evaluation. In summative evaluation are quizzes and tests that evaluate how much students learn throughout the end of the unit or at the end of semester. The next topic, which is criterion reference evaluation versus norm reference evaluation. In criterion reference evaluation, it is about we interpret scores in relation to the minimum acceptable level of performance, as stated in the performance objective. This is a type of evaluation that goes along with the goal-oriented and outcome-based education referred as mastery learning. In norm reference evaluation, about interpret evaluation results or scores against the scores of others, comparing the scores of a student to the average scores of the group. To summarize Chapter 5 about planning homework. Homework is the last but not the least part of a lesson. It is defined as a task assigned to the student by school that are intended. It provides the student the opportunity to extend knowledge. Homework helps students to practice materials already presented in class to reinforce learning and facilitate mastery of specific skills. It also helps to students to have a good study habit. It becomes the connection of the parent-teacher partnership for the education of child. It will develop the academic skills of the student. The student encouraged to use time wisely, work independent. also improve the critical thinking of the child. Homework teaches students to be independent, to take initiative and responsibility in completing their tasks. To summarize Chapter 6, Writing Lesson Plan. So lesson plan is the instructor roadmap of what the student need to learn, and it will be done effectively. It is a first level in implementing curriculum theme, creating a lesson plan with clearly defined learning, objective goals, and a metric for measuring progress toward this goal is vital to ensuring student benefit as much as possible from weekly lesson. Lesson plan also help teacher to be more effective in the classroom by providing a detail to follow each class period. A lesson plan for teacher that makes into account student learning styles and interests goes a long way to promoting student engagement and classroom involvement. Encourage your student to give feedback on lessons either throughout the week or at the end of a completed lesson. That's the end of my discussion.
Life in a world that keeps changing. Think that it's progress you're making. Copy and paste pretty faces all the time. Pictures so perfect we play through only cause you set up the angle. Web that you weave got us tangled, caught in what's before our eyes. Show off your fantasy reality. Whoa.